Hi everyone, welcome to QnA Friday. Today we've got two great questions on training and one of them pertains to the season. So let's dive in and answer your questions. The first question comes from a student who is wondering about her winter riding practices. Here in Australia we are deep into winter and some of the weather has been, wintry, oddly enough. So this student asks, now that winter is here, I find myself procrastinating about riding. Do you have any tips for fair weather riders? Now, I always advocate riding in lots of different conditions, but of course, not everyone enjoys doing that. So if you really must ride in only the good weather, there are some things that you can do. So first of all, you need some weather apps on your phone so that you know when the good weather is coming and what the week ahead has in store for you. So there's some great apps. Weather Zone, Willy Weather is another great one, and I use those two interchangeably, and you get a feel for how accurate they are for your area. And so I will always use those two. I get a really good outlook on Weather Zone, and then Willy Weather I get I think is more accurate in the predicted rainfall. So I use those two to figure out when lots of rain is coming. My arena doesn't like very much rain, so I have to manage that a little bit. And I always like my arena groomed before it rains. So if I know when the rain's coming, I can make sure it's groomed and it's nice and tidy. And then I always look out for different how much wind is coming. My rule of thumb is not to ride in wind that's more than 35 k's an hour, because dressage is about precision and balance, and if you're trying to hold on, then you're not going to get precision and balance. So 35 k's an hour is about my cutoff. But you might have more or less tolerance. So I use those apps, and the other thing I use those for is to decide rugs. How cold is it getting each night, and how many rugs do the horses need? So you can use those apps in a similar way. You can plan ahead what days you're going to ride. You can look and see when the rain is coming and when there isn't any rain, and you can figure out what days you want to ride, and then on those days just stick to riding. There's lots of other jobs that are swimming around in our heads. Put those jobs on the days where there's bad weather, and that way you're still getting everything done, and you're just not getting it done maybe on the days that you normally would. So if that's something that might work for you, look at the week ahead. And Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday might be the best days, because they might be sunny or there might not be any rain. The other days might be raining. So you would ride on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. If you can't get all the rides in, then really keep tabs, write in your diary what days you are riding, so that you have got an overview of how much training your horse is getting. Some weeks you might only get 3 rides in if you're a fair weather rider. Other weeks you might get 5 or 6 rides in, who knows. But try and balance it out in that way. If you have a light week, make sure, or if the weather's better the next week, then make sure you get lots of rides in, and then manage those other non-riding related jobs around that as well. The other thing is that when we're riding in winter, we don't get much daylight, and for those of you who don't have lights on your arena, even if you do, it's nice, it's still nice riding in the daylight. So so there's a few things you can do, and while I don't advocate, I wouldn't advocate this all year round, and there's certainly a way of managing it. There's some things that you can do to help get you on your horse quicker, and one of those is to minimize grooming. Now, I don't advocate this ordinarily or for long term, but once you've got your horse in, just whip all its rugs off, get your gear on, and away you go. So, not so much grooming. And you do need a few other management tools. Like for me, if I have to, approach it like that, I make sure the horse gets a clean white rug every week. So that horse might have 2 rugs. One is always, one is either getting washed and dried, and the other one it will have on. And that white rug, constantly turning that over, that's what keeps the horse clean. And of course, I would always check where the girth is going and where the boots are going, that there's no, large chunks of mud or whatever. So a little bit of grooming, but not as much as usual. And then on the weekends, you can spend more time grooming the horse and really, going deeper into the hair and onto the skin, to make sure the horse is really clean on the weekends when you've got more daylight and more time. So in that way, you're minimizing that grooming time, get your gear on, get on and ride. And so in that way, you're getting yourself on board quicker, and that's hopefully giving you a few extra minutes. Now, during the week, if you don't have a lot of time to ride, don't be afraid to ride for 20 minutes or, just 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. 20 minutes is still better than nothing. So, do it rather than not doing it. You might get 2 or 3 rides in during the week that are 20 minutes, and then on the weekend, that's when you can focus on riding your horse for longer, really putting those extra hours in, or that extra time in on the weekends. And in that way, that's a perfectly acceptable way of managing the horse, because you're still staying in touch with the horse. It's very difficult to stay in touch with the horse and your training if for the weekdays you don't ride, and then you're doing it all on the weekends. So try and get your rides in, even if they're short. There's nothing wrong with that, because you can make up for it on the weekends, and in that way you're managing your way through winter and through the weather, so that you've come out the other side and you can, hit spring ready to go. You don't want to come to spring when the weather starts getting sunny and then have to start from scratch. You don't want that kind of setback. So keep working your way through winter, and plan ahead using your apps, and use different horse management to get yourself into the saddle sooner. So comment below if any of those might come in handy, and also if you've got your own tips, feel free to share those with other viewers. So that's the first question. Now the second question comes from a girl who says, my horse is very strong in the canter. The longer I canter, the stronger he gets, and I end up needing lots of rein to come back to trot. How can I change this? So a horse who's really strong in the canter is unbalanced, and they use speed to keep themselves upright rather than strength and power. So an unbalanced horse, you want to then work on balance, and a great way to do that is to keep your canters short. 5, 6, maybe 7 strides of canter, and then back into your trot. And I don't mean ask for the trot after 6 strides. I mean back into the trot. So it will feel as though you're only just getting into canter, and then you're asking the horse to come back. And in that way, when the horse goes into canter, those first few strides are really balanced, and then after that, that's when it starts to fall apart. So if you're riding circle after circle in the canter on an unbalanced horse, you're not going to be able to get it back together. You need to come back to the trot, rebalance, and then pop back into the canter. So always keep your canter on a circle as well. Straight lines are for horses that are stronger, but a horse that is rushing needs that circle to keep the inside hind leg engaged, and you need the circle to keep your outside rein working well and staying in good contact with the horse's mouth. So, and the other thing you want to avoid is you want to avoid pulling on the inside rein. If you've got your horse bent around, you are helping to keep it unbalanced. A horse, when you're pulling on the inside rein, you're disengaging the inside hind leg, and that then puts the horse in a really unbalanced position, and it can't possibly fix the canter itself, and you're going to have a bit of a disaster in the transition back to trot. So make sure the horse is, you know, into your outside rein. Your inside rein should be fairly light, and make sure you're continuing to keep that inside hind leg engaged. If you're achieving a canter on the 20-meter circle, try it on the 15-meter circle, because the smaller the circle, that shape is going to further engage that inside hind leg and improve the balance. And then, and if you're getting it on the circle, you can test it on the long side, but I would only just straighten up and then come back to trot and circle immediately. Or, you know, come off the circle in the canter, just 3, maybe 4 strides on the long side, then ride another circle and back to trot on that circle, so that you're not spending too much time on the straight line, so that the horse isn't able to become unbalanced in that time. The other thing to do is that you can train the trot so that the horse has great balance in the trot, and then with the idea that the horse takes that balance into the canter. So if, as a trot exercise, work on your inside outside flexions, and you can do that going large. You can, you know, once you've achieved it going large, bring it in on a circle, the inside outside flexion. And what that does is that it really makes sure that your both reins are working effectively. You know, you can work on your outside rein, you can work on one, and then you can swap it and work on the other without actually having to change rein. So take your inside outside flexion, and you just constantly go from one to the other and back to the first one and back to the other one. And, you know, like initially you might be changing every 6 to 8 steps in the trot, and then you can bring it down to every 3 or 4 steps, but that might take a while. The inside outside flexion exercise, just do it in the trot. To do it in the canter at this stage might be too much. So just wait, you know, that might require you to wait for, you know, 6 to 8 weeks before your horse is strong enough. Then you can have a go at the inside outside flexion in the canter. The other thing you can do is to ask for your canter out of the shoulder in. So set your horse up in trot on the circle, shoulder in your trot, and then, you know, and the shoulder in really makes sure your outside rein is working. Make sure the shoulder in engages that inside hind leg, which is what we want. And don't even think straight and canter, just sit and ask for the canter out of that shoulder in, and the horse should come nice and balanced into the canter. Again, don't canter too long. Come back to trot and straight back into that shoulder in. Don't think, I'll trot and wait for the trot to be balanced before I ask shoulder in. As soon as you feel the trot rhythm, straight into the shoulder in, or ask for it immediately. And that then keeps the horse accountable and keeps that inside hind leg underneath the horse, and therefore the horse is keeping its balance, and, you know, the trot is then quite fine. Be cautious, be really careful not to pull on the inside rein for the transition. You know, again, that will unbalance the horse. If you have to get strong in a rein, get strong in your outside rein. You can even think of outside flexion in the canter as a way of coming back to the trot. Okay, so how is your canter? Do any of those ideas sound like they might be useful for you? Yeah, leave us a comment and tell us what might work for your horse. So they are our questions for Q&A Friday. Don't forget to put your own question in. I love hearing all of your questions, and I really appreciate it when you put the time in to make contact, and that way we can chat and share ideas on the video. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to Dressage with Sally. I'll talk to you all soon.